All right, good morning, everybody, and welcome back to True Crime Loser. I hope you had time to look over your diplomatic papers this weekend because we are off and running another week. We are having a dirty, nasty, sweaty slot fest of a summer here in New York. So hopefully you're staying cool somewhere. All right, real quick, if you want to support the channel, there's a Patreon link in the description, a PayPal link in the description. You can get one of these sweet coffee mugs. Or we also have Schmieda Fam t-shirts and sweatshirts. Check them out. It helps the channel a lot. All right, so today we're going to talk about Kai, the hatchet-wielding smash hitchhiker. And the Kai, the hatchet-wielding hitchhiker, great nickname, by the way. Not really sustainable to have a good, full, long life if you are called Kai, the hatchet-wielding hitchhiker. It's not really setting you up to have a long, stable life, but nonetheless, great nickname. So, Kai the Hatchet-Wielding Hitchhiker, the story started in February 2nd of 2013 and then came to a close like a month ago, which I don't think a lot of people know. And so like mid-June, like a month, a little over a month ago, a couple friends and my lady and I, we went on a day hike. Part of the Appalachian Trail, you drive from New York, I think like a half an hour to Delaware, and you park right off the side of the highway, and then you can just go on this little day hike. So there's people on the trail that are doing the whole 2,000 miles, but we just wanted to do like a couple hours. But the people that are on there for miles, they love talking about gear. They'll be like, how many pairs of fresh socks do you have left, man? It's just like, I don't know, man. What kind of hiking pants are those, man? Those are the through hike people. They love gear, dude. Socks, bro. And so we're on this hike, right? And we start hiking next to a defense attorney in New Jersey. And then it comes up that I do this YouTube channel about crime, and we're talking about it. And then she gets what it is, and then so at the time I was like, do you know anything about the Liam McAtazzi case? And she was like, no, not really, because that was going down in Jersey right at that time. And then she was like, have you ever heard of Kai, the hatchet-wielding hitchhiker? And I was like, of course. He's just he's a YouTube, that interview that he did. And then so we were talking about that, and I was pretty, I would say, like most people on YouTube, I watched the other popular videos on him on YouTube. It's very pro Kai. And after talking to her, I think I might possibly have some exclusive Schmieda exclusive information. I might have some exclusive information on this one. Because she didn't work on the case, but she knew people that were working on the case, and they were not a lot of information came out on the trial. But anyway, let me just start at the beginning, and then we'll get into what this lawyer told me on the Appalachian Trail. All right, so February 2nd, 2013, this guy's driving down the road in California, and he sees a kid with a bandana on and hair sticking out like Sideshow Bob, and a backpack with a sleeping bag and a sleeping pad. Obviously a young traveler. So this guy picks up Kai. And while they're driving, and this, I think, without a doubt, ruined Kai's life, getting into the car with this guy. It doesn't seem like it at the beginning, but so Kai gets in this dude's car, and they're driving down the road, and at least according to Kai, the guy is cuckoo, totally nuts, and he starts talking about how when he was 30, he was down in the Virgin Islands, and he raped a 14-year-old, and he starts crying, and Kai, according to Kai, at one point, he started hugging Kai and crying. I'm not sure how that totally worked with the driving. Maybe it was one of these, like, brother. And so that was the first. So he's crying and talking about this 14-year-old in the Virgin Islands. And then pretty quickly it goes from, I'm sad that I did this, to saying, you know what? I realize I'm Jesus Christ and I can do whatever I want. That's a big jump. You're sitting there feeling guilty, you're crying, and then it's just like, you know what? You know what? I think I might be Jesus Christ. I think I can do whatever I want. That's a nice way to, I guess, to deal with guilt. You're sitting there just like, oh man, I can't believe I did that. I'm an idiot. And then just like, well, I think I'm Jesus Christ. Hallelujah. Let's party. So, after he realizes that he is Jesus Christ and he can do whatever he wants, he goes, watch this. And he plows into a poor fella that is just working, making a living. He's a utility worker in California, just a nice guy. I don't know if he's nice, but since something really bad happened to him, let's pretend that he's a really nice guy. So this guy is just nice. He's sitting there, he's working, and then the 14-year-old Virgin Island, Epstein? The 14-year-old rapist who has recently come to realize that he is Jesus Christ rams this dude and pins him in between a utility vehicle. All right? And Kai, the hatchet wielding hitchhiker, is in the car with his bag and his hatchet. He hasn't wielded it yet, but he's sitting there, you know, probably I would assume he was like, whoa, dude. And so then he gets out of the car to check on the guy, and the guy's pinned, and in the totally outrageously famous interview that Kai does in a few minutes after this, Kai goes, railway car riders know if you get pinned, you don't pull the thing back because you'll bleed out. And so this guy's just pinned, and there's these two, and so then Kai gets out and looks at the guy, and it's just like, whoa. And then he goes up to the driver's side door, and I guess the guy is just sitting in the driver's seat, just going, you know, not doing anything, which is kind of horrifying, just sitting there like, I'm Jesus Christ. And then two women approach the poor fella, they're just a utility worker trying to get through the day, just trying to get home to his TV seat to relax. So now he's pinned by possibly Jesus Christ. And so these two women come up and are looking at him and are trying to help him. And then so the man that thinks he's Jesus gets out of the car, and this guy is huge, 300 pounds. And so he gets out of the car and goes towards the women that are helping him, starts to grab at one of them, is totally nuts. And so then this is when Kai pulls out his hatchet. If it was a movie, you know, he's the hatchet wielding hitchhiker, so it would have been like, ah. And so Kai, famously, as he's grabbing this little woman from behind with the blunt side of the hatchet, in Kai's words, he goes, smash, smash, smash. That like button if you have a chance. So he comes up and he gives him the old smash, 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 and opens this dude's head completely up. And so now the guy stumbles back, and I think everyone's just kind of looking at him. And Kai's sitting there with his hatchet, and he's stumbling around with the head open up, bleeding, as you can imagine. And Kai kind of walks a little bit this way to try to get him just away from everyone. Still got his hatchet, still wielding his hatchet. And then one of the pieces of the story that just brings it from one level to just this will be a Netflix documentary. There's a few details in this story that make it go from like, oh, that's pretty cool, or not, that's an insane story, to like, okay, this is. And so this guy's head's opened up, blood everywhere. He's stumbling around like a zombie, and Kai is moving this way, and Kai gets a distance away, and then somebody reported that the guy that has his head opened up, that thinks he's Jesus Christ, bleeding everywhere, waddles over to a school and starts jerking off in front of it. Which, I would have never, if you were to ask me, like, okay, this guy's hit with a hatchet, he had just rammed a guy because he's Jesus Christ, what do you think he does next? I probably wouldn't have guessed that he was going to waddle over to a school and start masturbating. I was laughing last night that a nice first grade teacher named Mrs. Jenkins is in her classroom, and it's beautiful, and there's apples and numbers and letters everywhere. And she's facing the window, and all the kids, the back is to the window because they're facing her. And she's like, okay, everybody, it's story time. Today we're going to read The Ball That Rolled Into the Road. And she opens the book. Katie had a red ball. Katie loved her red ball. And then she looks up, and just through the window she sees a guy with half a head masturbating. But she doesn't want to make a big deal of it, so the kids look, so she just keeps reading. She's like, Katie's ball was really bouncy, and looks up, and the guy's just like, eh. Okay, anyway, and so the guy that thinks he's Jesus Christ that was jerking off in front of the school with a head opened up dies. And then the cops take Kai because they're not sure if he's a murderer or a hero, and they take a statement from him, and they put him in the back of a police car for a little bit, and then at some point they come to a consensus that he did what he had to do. This guy was nuts, and he probably saved some lives by doing it. So they let him go. He did have to go to court for this, but let's first get to the interview. So they let him out of the sheriff's car, and they give him his backpack back. So he's just a drifter again, just a drifter having a crazy day. And a local California news team comes up and asks for an interview, and boy, did they get one. They probably had no idea they were going to get their career-making interview. I doubt they'll have anything that goes this viral or that has this many watches or this many plays into the future. And so this little news team walks up and says, hey, can we talk? Or no, they go, hey, here's one of the heroes. And Kai goes, one of the they go, the hero. And Kai goes, one of the heroes. And they go, can we talk to you for a minute? He's like, yeah, what do you want to talk about? And he's got his little Canadian accent, but it's mixed with his new surfer California accent, which is pretty funny. And they're like, so, what are you doing today? And his first answer is, he goes, just coming straight out of Dogtown, bro. Just skateboarding and surfing it up. And at this point, it's like, this interview is going to be epic. You start the interview where you killed a man thinking he was going to be Jesus Christ, that you hit with that hatchet, and then he went and jerked off in front of the school. You start that interview by saying, straight out of Dogtown, I was surfing, I was skateboarding. Also, he's from Canada, so who knows how many even days he was in California before he just adopted that, just like, whoa, skate or die, brah. And then he had the line that completely won him over for the American people, which he said. So he's about ready to talk about how he bashed this guy with his hatchet. And he said, real quick, first I just want to say it doesn't matter. Oh yeah, even if you made mistakes, you're lovable. Doesn't matter your looks, skill, age, size, or anything. You're worthwhile, and no one can take that from you. And that's just what I call drifter perspective. You know, like it does seem like people that are out there drifting or homeless for a while, they kind of do have that perspective or a little bit of not like you're worth something. And it's like people love hearing that, and people really got behind him. They're like, you know what? I am worth something. This Kai dude with his hair sticking out and his dirty hands smoking a cigarette with his hatchet, like, dude, bro, straight out of Dogtown, you are worth something. And I get it. So people love hearing that. And they really got behind him. Here's the thing: what I've noticed though about drifter perspective is if you are sitting at a bus station late at night, or on a Greyhound, or on a subway platform, and you do get a little bit of drifter, as soon as you get a nugget of good information like that, like, hey man, everybody's worth something no matter what, man. If it's good, then just be like, right on, and get out of the way. Because I found in my experience that they normally have like one good point where it's like, man, it doesn't matter your age, your size, you're a good person. And it's like, yeah, all right, I'll stand by that. Right on, brother, and then get out of there. Because what I found is usually something nuts is coming after that. Like, you can't hang around for too long. Like, I was waiting for a bus one night, and this guy next to me was like, you know what? The whole political landscape is just fucked, because what people do is they commit to a narrative, and then they're not trying to look for truth. They're just trying to look for things that reaffirm their narrative, and they're kind of useless because they're just trying to prove their own narrative. And I was like, you know what? That's not a bad idea. And then like 2 seconds later, he was like, and Obama is the Antichrist. And I was like, all right. So the key is to, when you do get drifter perspective, is just get out of there before it gets... All right. So they're doing this interview. And he has some great lines in it. At one point, he goes, and I have no idea what this means. And so if you do, leave it in the comments. But he goes, fuck is cool. This guy ain't shit. I don't know, but it sounds kind of funny. Another line he says in the interview, he goes, dude, that dude was beyond Howlade. I don't even see any breath in him. I think that means he's crazy. And then the line that I think is probably the most important line of the interview that sets the tone for what happens next is talking about beating this dude with a hatchet. He said, it's like the biggest wave I've ever ridden in my life. Which is a strange way to describe that situation, because surfing, he calls surfing his favorite thing. And so to call what just happened like the best of his favorite thing, I think shows that it was an adrenaline rush for him. He also got a taste for this hero, because he kills this guy, and immediately he is just talked about as a hero, and as everybody's behind him. He's totally famous. He goes 10 days later, he goes and does Jimmy Kimmel, and him and Jimmy Kimmel do this bit where they're driving in a car, in the studio together, and Jimmy's asking him questions like, how do you make it out there? And a lot of his answers are just like, 'cause I'm a badass motherfucker. And every time he says that, the audience goes nuts. Woo, he is Kai. We love you, Kai. Thanks for telling us we're worth something. That's how starved people are for just to hear something like, hey, listen, you're worth something. No matter what, no one can take that away from you. You deserve respect. And he had this drifter, like, I just love everyone, man. And so he's on Kimmel. Kimmel gives him a surfboard and, like, Ellen style, like, bring out his prize. And so he was America's sweetheart for a little bit. And then 2 months later, I saw on another YouTube channel that, so 2 months later, he's in Times Square late at night. And maybe I'll go walk around Times Square late at night at some point for you guys, just to show you the vibes. But Times Square late at night gets pretty seedy. It's like families that just got into New York and are staying in that area and they want to see Times Square, or they're jet lagged, so they're just like, man, I might as well just go now. So it's like families that look a little tired from traveling all day to New York, and they're taking pictures. And then it's just seedy, like drug dealers who are selling horrible drugs that aren't even what they're advertised as. And then it's like Times Square used to be a lot of like sex shops, or you could go in and watch a little peep show. And as it gets late, like I said, it just gets pretty seedy. So, but I saw in one of the YouTubers that made a video about this, he was saying maybe that it was the night that he did Kimmel, but it's not true. I looked at this is months after Kimmel. Also, if you do Kimmel, they give you a hotel room. You don't have to sleep in Times Square if you're on the Jimmy Kimmel Show. But anyway, so a couple months later, he is in Times Square late at night, and he meets a 73-year-old predominant lawyer. What's his name? I forgot his name. Alfie. So he meets this 73-year-old lawyer named Alfie, and according to Kai, he needed a place to stay. He's this famous internet star, and so according to Kai, this guy invited him back to stay at his house, just as like a, you need a place to stay? Come on back. I'm not sure I believe that story. Meeting a weird dude late at night in Times Square, I mean, maybe that's just the drifter, like, yo, bro, thanks, lifestyle, but I don't know. It doesn't seem... I feel like there was more to the agreement than just, I'll let you stay. And so the story from Kai is that he goes to this 73-year-old's house. They have a drink together. Kai gets super tired all of a sudden, goes to bed, wakes up the next morning, and thinks he's sexually assaulted, is groggy. He thinks that he has the guy's bodily fluids on his face. And he just thinks he got drugged. And so then he, like, apparently was left and was going to go do something else. And that fell through, and so he needed a place to stay again. So he asked the guy if he could stay again, which, if you woke up thinking you got drugged, and you're like, I feel a little weird, and what is that? And would you really go back and stay again? Why not just stay? But according to Kai, he then stays there another night. And also, according to Kai, they also had another beer together, which, if you got date raped the night before and the guy was like, hey, you want to have a beer? I'm pouring in the other room. But again, so they have a drink together. Kai immediately gets exhausted again, goes to sleep, and then this time he said he wakes up with the guy naked on top of him thrusting. And so, according to Kai, the story is he gets up, goes, what the hell, hits the guy in self-defense, and then leaves. And then he's picked up a while later. So this guy is dead, right? The 73-year-old. And then one of the weirdest parts of this trial is then from that point, it's 5 years until it goes to trial, which I really don't think is acceptable. Unless it was Kai's lawyers trying to do it, but I think it was the other side. And so this guy that he killed, the 73-year-old, was a predominant lawyer. And so according to Kai, he was friends and buddies with all the detectives and all of the, which is, I guess, possible. I don't know if there's any way to look into it. I tried. But according to Kai, he was friends with all. So according to Kai, they came in and immediately ran the dishwasher that would have gotten rid of evidence that there was date rape drugs in the glasses. So according to Kai, the dishwasher was run in a crime scene, which is pretty crazy. And according to Kai, just everything was done by this guy's buddies to make it not look like self-defense and all this stuff. Kai ended up taking the stand and almost got arrested because he was blurting out and interrupting, and I would love to see him take the stand. But anyway, so at this point, still, even to this day, everybody on YouTube, if you go watch any Kai Hatchet Wielding Hitchhiker video, it's very positive towards Kai, because it's like he was screwed over by, the justice system. 5 years is a long time for a trial. But, the dishwasher, he came out with this audio where he's like, if you're like me, you want the truth. And I was railroaded by the police. So anyway, he ends up getting, finally, after 5 years, on June 13th, so a little over a month ago, he was found guilty and sentenced to 57 years. And so in a quick 2-month period, Kai, the hatchet-wielding hitchhiker, went from American hero on viral interview where he's saying what people want to hear, like, you're worth something, man, it's all it is, to 57 years for killing a 73-year-old man. And like I said, it's very pro-Kai, anything that you look at. And so anyway, fast forward to a little over a month ago, and I'm walking my little day hike on the Appalachian Trail, feeling good, nature, talking to hiker bros about clean socks and gear. And I'm talking to this lawyer, and like I said, I, like everybody else, was like, man, I don't know. It seems like this guy was raping him, and he just defended himself. Well, she was saying that the injuries, which they've come out and said a little bit, like this guy had a bunch of skull fractures and a bunch of chest fractures and really horrible. So to call it self-defense with looking at and I was like, interesting. Yeah, that's not really out there on YouTube for the people that are talking about. It's very pro-Kai. And then, I don't know, this is what might be totally exclusive. Schmida exclusive. What she said is, and again, she didn't work on this case, and maybe she heard wrong from the person that she heard, or maybe I heard it wrong, so it's not in stone, but possibly what is true is she was saying, because I was almost arguing with her, being like, are you sure he wasn't just a drifter that went over to this guy's house, and this guy tried to assault him, and he just smashed? And she was like, well, his ear was cut off. Not ripped off from fighting, I think someone sat there after he was dead or knocked out and cut. And then, so if that's true, it's like, all right, Kai, I don't know. I don't know if that's self-defense, is sit there and be. But again, I'm not going to totally say, I can't say that it's true because I just heard it walking in the woods. But anyway, he got 57 years. And it's a sad case. You got to take care of your kids, or this is the kind of stories that we get. So please, just take care of your kids, all right? But I'm going to cut it off there. If you would smash that like button, that would be awesome. I love you all. Why? Stive and why. Have a good day. Shamita.